Right, so as I said, I've just pulled the engine loom out of the car, and this is what we're left with now. So we can do the final installation and final wire tuck, so we can go to the extremes now of getting this loom right out of the way so you don't see it. So when you see an engine loom like this, you can work out that it's pretty simple. You just got to work out where the connectors go inside the engine loom. Good thing about these looms is they are separate from the ECU, so your engine loom is completely separate. Reminds me of the old Cozzies. You could have a completely separate engine loom on an airbrush like that, and you could do whatever you want with it. So I've just extended the starting and charging loom connector about, I don't know, 18 inches or so, just because I wanted to tuck it round the back here, and it just quite weren't long enough to get back into the connector. So yeah, now I'm going to extend that, going to take that up now, and I can tuck that right inside down the back there. The battery cable's down there as well, you can't even see it. I'm also just going over all the connections and the earths and everything, and just putting brand new crimps on them, just so they've got a fresh contact, because over the years these start to corrode and oxidize. So putting new connections on them, make sure you've got the perfect earths. So same with the ones in the car as well, just going to replace these. You can see like little bit of oxidization in there, and the copper. People underestimate the importance of an earth. You've got to create a good connection. It's not always about the power. If you don't have a good earth, you're never going to have a good system. So that's much better than that one. So let's play what's in the freezer today. So I took a few people's advice in the comment section. I went out and got some ice lollies, because summer's coming up. And I'll tell you what, went out and bought these ones, the classic style ice lollies, and all I kept eating was the cola bottles, because the cola was my favourite one. Pineapple's nice as well. So went into Lidl, got these cola ice lollies, and I tell you what, you need to get down to Lidl and get yourself some of these. These are amazing. So if you like cola, if you like that sort of flavour, these are the ones to get. Also, they do mint magnums in there. They're like a knockoff version, but I'll tell you what, they're actually better than the mint magnums. God, these are so refreshing on a lovely warm spring day that we've got. Proper tasty. So if you're going to tape up using this Tezza tape, make sure you get the genuine stuff. There's a lot of knockoff out there. Doesn't stick as well. Make sure you tape it into the shape that you want the loom to go, because once you've taped it up, it obviously becomes tight and it's not flexible anymore. You can get an overbraid wrap that I've got, but I haven't got it in the right size. So obviously it's going to go down in through that bulkhead, so it needs to twist around and attach to the ECU. So that's the reason that I've done like the 180-degree curve on it. So we're starting to do the final installation now, tucking all this wiring well out of the way. You can see the loom's tucked down there now. Put a bit of trim round this edge here so it won't cut into anything, and then that will be covered up eventually. You can see the wiring loom is now all getting tidied well out of the way. I'm going to make a plate up, a shiny plate, to cover this ABS pump because it's ugly, and I'll just that'll just make it a little bit prettier, and also because it's going to sit above here. You won't be able to see down the back there. Now I can take off all these brackets as well, so we're going to drill out all these spot welds for these brackets, the earthing brackets, and make that all tidied up. And eventually I want to bring this header tank, not that one, I'm going to get a different header tank, and probably mount it to this, and then we can have a header tank here, and then there'll be nothing on this wing at all. This will be cut down so that there'll just be a plate there, and you can just pop water into there, and that whole turret there, that whole chassis leg will all be clear of anything, so that'll look good as well. I've just chopped out the MAF wiring because I'm going to extend that now and go across here the same way that I've gone across here with the crank sensor and the cam sensor wiring, and then it will go along here to the MAF, which is there, and then it won't have to go across here. You won't see anything over there. I didn't want any of the wiring coming across there, it just spoils the look. And then obviously the whole lot is just going to be covered by that big cam cover. That's why I've got this one. I've got loads of different designs, but this one's going to cover all the wiring. Right, now let's jump ahead from the last clip, because we've been doing a lot of wiring lately in the videos, and I don't want to bore you all with the same wiring over and over again. So I'm going to show you around the engine bay now. I've done a lot of wiring in the engine bay, tucking everything, tucking the loom out of the way. So now the loom is in. You can see from the top, that is the view of the loom completely in. So we've got the engine bay loom, we've got the engine loom in. So from the top of the inlet, you know that we normally have this big plastic bar across here. Literally all you can see now is the injector clips along here and the throttle body one. There's nothing I can do about moving that. So you can see all the loom in here is tucked under here, and there's no MAF wiring loom. So normally the MAF wiring loom would come around here. Instead, I've run it over the top of the rocker cover, and along here. So we've got the braided line. You can see what I've done is I'll pull it out for you before I cable tie it. You can see that goes under there now. I took off the elbow. I de-pinned this plug. So we've got this plug. So we've got fresh connectors in there now, all sealed up. So I can get a good angle on it now without the elbow on it. You can see I can get it nice and tight and tucked under there. You're never going to see it out of the way. So until I pull things apart like this, you don't even see the wiring. So if you look from the top of the car, let's just tuck that away again so you can't see it. And that's going to be cable tied. This is just temporary at the minute. What I'm going to do is start removing brackets that I don't need. So this bracket here is not needed anymore. This was the fuse box and the ABS bracket that held this on. That can go. Also, this can go, and you can tell that obviously I haven't painted this wing up yet, because the reason being is I want to get all the brackets off it first before I start painting it. This is for the alarm. This is going to be moved. And also last night I was looking at header tanks. So this header tank is nasty. It's a stock header tank plastic. I'm going to change that. I'm going to try and put one either there, across there, so that it hides the back of the where the wiring goes into the bulkhead, and then I can paint all that inner wing, and that way I can get rid of these two hoses here, because they're going to go up here instead of across here, so that'll look even cleaner. So this is the one that feeds the water into the engine, this one here. So that will just be relocated as well. So this whole side here won't have anything. Now what I'm going to do as well is cut this down. I was having to think about it. I'm going to cut this down here flush and use this hole here and make a cap. So similar to what this is here, but cut that flush and then have a cap that bolts to there. So it acts as like a blank, but it also acts as a cap as well. So you can still fill it up. I can just unscrew it, fill up the washer bottle when needed, but at least it's smoothed over. So to prove to you that the loom is in and everything still runs, I'm going to start the car up as it is now, so you can see how tidy it looks. Really, really impressed. I never thought I'd be able to get a Z20let engine bay to look like this, a wireless looking engine bay. I've done it to the RS Turbo, but they're a lot simpler design. It would look a lot cleaner if it didn't have the ABS pump, but the ABS pump is going to have more advantages than disadvantages. So what I normally do is use this takeoff on the back of the throttle body when I blank it off for the breather systems. On the high horsepower cars, the worst thing that can happen is this would pop off, this fuel pressure regulator piping. This is the vacuum and the one that supplies pressure to it. So let's just say that this fuel pressure regulator is 3 bar at vacuum. So what happens is if you put a bar of boost in there, it now gives you 4 bar of fuel pressure. If you give 2 bar boost in there, it gives you 5 bar of fuel pressure. And this is how it works. So if you're running, say, 2 bar boost, it should be running 5 bar fuel pressure, say. This is an example. And that popped off like that, you would be running 3 bar fuel pressure regulator when you should be running 5 bar. You know what that's going to do to your engine. Everything's going to go bang. You're going to have a hole in your piston. So it's so important to have that on a separate connector. If you go to any top engine builder or top mapper in the country, they won't allow you to have that on like a T-piece coming off of the inlet manifold. While we're talking about that, you can see that I've changed this connection on here to like a push type. So now I can use a hard line in there. You can see instead of a vacuum line, so that's properly secure, like the air ride type systems. These are like the valves that they use on there, and then you can literally just push that under it and you don't have to use a silicone hose. So before I start this up anymore, I need to address getting some fluid into this power steering fluid reservoir, because at the minute it's completely drained from where I dropped the subframe down. I've got 25 litres of it here. I haven't really used much of it yet. Can see, but yeah, some fresh fluid to go in. Just going to transfer it quickly over to old 1 litre Halfords bottle that I've got. It's got nothing in it, but that's what it was. And I'm also going to put a funnel as well, so it's going to be fun trying to get that into there. So you have to get a little funnel, try and pour it into it without spilling it everywhere. So I've got a nice clean funnel. You can all laugh at me now while I pour this all over the floor. Should be fun. Oh no, we've got it. Lovely fresh fluid. I'm gonna overfill it. That'll do for now. Get that in there. So a little trick that I'll do, instead of having to use a funnel when you're pouring that into the reservoir, I do this with the gearboxes as well, because you fill them from the top. So when you're turning this upside down, just kink over the nozzle like that, so that you can hold that, and then as soon as you put that into the reservoir, like I'll show you, you can just let go of the kink. So you can turn it upside down, you can see none of the fluid leaks out of it. Then let go of the kink. As soon as it gets into the reservoir, you can just squeeze it out then. So that's a miracle. I managed to get the fluid in there without spinning it everywhere. See the level's up now, perfect level. So the way to bleed these systems is just turn the steering, as long as the pump's working, turn the steering left to right, just keep doing it, get the air out of the system. It only takes a couple of turns and it's done. You can see on this where the wiring goes in, I've put like a trim round here now to protect any of the wiring. Got the wiring grommet that goes in here. Right, let's quickly get this car started up, just so you can see as it is now, exactly how it is, like that, with all the wiring hidden. It will start up, just like it should do. On the button. Oh, that V-Power smell. Every time I get to a decanted exhaust, that V-Power smell, I love it. So it's bloody cold today. It's turned cold. Yesterday it was lovely and warm, but got a bit of condensation there. I find that the colder days are perfect for a little bit more exhaust popping and banging. So we're going to get the wheels and that on, and I need to get the brakes bled before I do that, and just cable tie them connectors and that back up, and that way then we can adjust the coilovers the way they're sitting, because I want to drop the rear a little bit. You can see I've started flaring this arch out because I've got 9Js that I want to put on the rear. They're 7.5s at the minute, so I'm going to put some 9Js on the rear, but that be in different episodes as well. It's going to take a bit of work to do, and I'm probably going to have to paint these arches back up anyway. The idea is probably to cut these and flare them out a little bit more, but I haven't decided what I'm going to do on that yet. So this is the brake fluid I use for my cars, unless I'm going to extreme temperatures, and I won't know till I'm on track. I use these in all my cars to start with as a baseline. It's a racing fluid made by ATE. It used to be called Super Racing Blue, but they've actually took the blue out of it now, which is kind of annoying because it looks quite good in the tank. You'd had like a blue fluid, but now it's like a non-coloured fluid, and that was all down to EU regulations. EU just wanted them to take, and US as well. They just wanted the company to take out the blue colouring dye because the fluid had to be of a clear or uncoloured design. No idea why. Someone must have been sitting in their office and thought, I don't like the blue, so take it out. So you can see now how the fluid is clear, or like a golden colour. I bled my brakes the other day before I took them off, just to check that the calipers and the pistons weren't seized where they've been sitting for so long. And you had the lovely blue colour coming out of the calipers. So these are the 9Js that I want to put on the car. They've got a big offset on them as well. So you can see how much wider these are than the stock wheels. Obviously the stock wheels have tyres on them. You can see how much wider they are. And I can't wait to use these on the front with a big set of 888s on them, or a set of slicks on them at Santa Pod. They're going to give me a ton more grip, but we've got to try and get them on the rear. But look at the dish difference on the 9J between the 7.5J and the 9J. So I'll try and give you a comparison and sit them side by side. You can see like how much more dish the 9J has. I think it looks really aggressive. Yeah, so at some point in one of the videos we're going to have to get them fitted to the car, but they're going to need arch mods to get them on. There's no way they're going to fit on. They already poke out the arches, probably, I don't know, sort of like here. And I'm not going to run stretch tyres or anything like that. That's just stupid. So I just took the rear wheel off the rear of the car because I wanted to get the rear coilover lower, but there's not really much I've got left in it, like maybe a couple of mil. And this coilover is designed for a full weight car. So it's too high at the minute with a fully stripped out car, and no one needs these helper springs in there like they're for girls. So we're going to take out the helper spring and just going to run the full spring like I do on the front. Just going to do a measurement quickly and see how much thickness there is there, so I know how to bring this adjuster up, how far I need to bring it up, and then we can go from there. So the car probably needs to drop another 10mm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure these helper springs at full compression. You see on the car there was at full compression. And then I'm going to measure how far I need to bring this adjuster upwards and just take 10mm off. Pretty simple. Right, so I just measured them and they're around 20mm compressed. So I'm going to pop them out and then I can bring this adjuster up, say 10mm, and that should give me a good base to start with. So let's get this thing out, it's not needed. There you go, so you can see it sits in there perfectly in the spring, how it's supposed to sit. All these are for is to stop this spring rattling around when it's not under load. That's all they're for. They've got no strength in them at all. You can see, do that with my fingers. Right, so that one's done. See, I took the spring out, all bolted back in. So now I'll drop her down. I've got to do the other side first, and then we'll see what we're at in height, in ride height, and then we'll see what we need to adjust it by. I think that should be pretty close, but you know, couple of mil, 5mm, we'll have a look. So I just measured this side up as well. Both springs are out now on both sides, so looks much better like a coilover now. Nice little dumpy setup. So I'm just going to adjust the dampening quickly to a setting that I know works on this car, and then when we test it we can adjust it on the go. Wow, well, she's finally on the ground. It feels really weird to be so high over the engine bay after all these months of it being up in the air. Feels like I'm a giant standing over the top of it now. But you can see the fronts need to come lower and the rear is too low. A bit too much stance on the rear. So we've got to drop the fronts down and raise the rear up a little bit. Try and get an even, like a rake across the front. So I don't know how much we've got to come down. Good couple of centimetres on the front. Yeah, just raise the rear up a little bit. Right, so I've pulled the side skirt extensions off and I've raised the rear up now. A good ½ inch or so. It looks a bit, still looks quite low on this side because I've pulled that lip down, you can see. But if you look at it on the other side, the lips had no modification. There's actually quite a nice arch gap in there. So I think I'm going to leave it like that, and I'm going to drop the front because the front looks like it's on stilts at the minute. I don't know why, because the fronts are not far off being maxed, and that don't make any sense because I've had these coilovers on other cars and they've sat nice and low. In fact, they've sat too low and I've had to raise them up. But I know there's been a ton of weight taken out of this car, so it's probably accounting for it. So I'm going to drop them down, see how low I can get the fronts. So finally my air filter's turned up. I had to get this from the States because if you know these cars, you know that everyone runs the AEMs, but I do like them, but they're too small. The little 5-inch ones, they just look too lost in the engine bay. So I had to order this one from the States, which is the same size neck, but it's the bigger daddy version. So this is I think it's like 7 or 9-inch one, something like that. Probably get a sock for it as well, just to tidy up the engine bay so you can see. So it's the same diameter head for the 80mm. You can see it's a lot longer, so you'll see it when it's in the engine bay. The AEM ones normally are about this sort of length. If you've got one, you'll know. And this one's about 2 inches longer. It just looks a lot better in the engine bay, don't look as lost. So that's what the air filter looks like in the bay. You can see it's a lot longer, but it sits in there perfectly. That's the size I wanted. The standard AEM one probably comes off to about this sort of size. Just wanted to say it filled up the engine bay a little bit, but I don't like these intakes. I don't like the way that they kick the air filter off like that. So obviously I'm going to cut this out anyway to make this bracket for this aero catch. And I'm probably going to make myself an intake in the future that comes around here so the air filter sits a little bit straighter. So that's max lows you can see now on the front, and if that still ain't low enough, I'm going to have to go for a shorter spring. Right, so that's all she wrote on the front. That is literally max lows. Now I've got a feeling that it's stuck on its bump stops. I've got a feeling that the bump stops are being sticky on the shaft. I just had a look in there. You can't really see it, but I'm hoping that when I move the car around, they settle, and knowing my luck, the wheel will go through the turret. But that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to leave it at the minute. I'm going to raise the back a tiny bit more just to compensate for the fact that I can't get the front as low as I want. So that's going to end it out for this episode, I think. I've just moved the car about a little bit just to see if it's settled anymore, but it hasn't. I'm going to get to getting this thing cleaned up. I've got to sort one of the bumpers out on it, because I've got 3 Pro Drive bumpers, and I need to pick the best one, paint it up, do some modifications to it. I'm going to chuck the old one on for now quickly, just that's got a bump on it, and then we can get on with tidying this thing up because it's a right state at the minute. So join me in the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this. It's getting quite long now, didn't want to get too long. So I think we're going to end this episode out now because it's getting long, and you can see we've got a lot of work done. Engine bay's looking really tidy. It's about time this thing has a wash and we sort out the ride height a little bit better. I'm going to have to compensate for the fronts not being low enough to jack the rears up a little bit because they're sitting perfectly on the rears, but you have to jack the rears up to compensate for the fronts. The car needs an absolute scrub, because the last time it was washed about 6 months ago, it's gone through the whole winter and it was only washed with fairy liquid because this is race car life. But it's had a cover over the top of it and everything. Needs a proper going over, a proper buff. So going to end out this episode. Hope you enjoyed it.